Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Dawn Patrol. Today is Thursday, May 8th, 2025. I'm Sam Chase, and I'm sitting in for Evelyn Thoren, who usually is the host on Thursday morning. At 7 o'clock, we will come in, and we will be City Life at that point. And the the folks in Chelmsford will be able to pick that up as well. So with me this morning is Bob Hoey, who is a regular co-host. So I'm glad you're here, Bob. And as I said, Evelyn is off doing, as we say, her construction duties and also grandmotherly duties. She's got a very full plate for the last couple of days, and so she won't be with us. At 7 o'clock, when the Chelmsford folks join us, we will also have Vivian Merrill as a guest. Vivian's been on the show many, many times over the last couple of years, and she wears a number of hats officially in Chelmsford, and she also is quite knowledgeable in the insurance industry as she works for a local insurance broker. So it's always a good time with Vivian. So Bob, what's up? What have you got to tell us this morning?
Well, I didn't realize you were the host today, and now I'm a little bit excited. You know, you ever get goose pimples? You're excited about an issue. Well, Tuesday, the show I was on Tuesday, we had Eric Gitcher on, City Councilor Gitcher.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
And by the way, I'm pretty sure I work hard for him because he's just a guy that you should work hard for. But what I'd like to say about him is I know he's a fan of yours.
Really?
He tells me that, and I'm pretty sure I could get him on Chasing the Facts.
I'd love to have him on.
All you'd have to do is call this guy. Really, you just have to call him. He might even call you that I'm saying it now. If you ever wanted him on your show, he'd go on your show. I guarantee it. I could put my word on it because that's the type of kid he is. I shouldn't call him a kid. That's the type of person he is. He would make someone a great city manager, but he don't want that. He takes care of the Greater Lowell Technical High School, all their maintenance issues, and much more. Talking to students, you'll catch him at 5:30 at night playing long toss with his math teacher's son that works there. We're very lucky to have him, but when it comes to you, Sam, right, the question I asked Eric the other day, right, and boy, did he answer me quick. The past couple of terms, our taxes went up quite a bit in Lowell. I know you always say we're a good bang for the buck, Sam, and I agree with you 100%. But when I asked him that question, right away he goes, like basically said, wait, when did you ever see them go down?
Well, that's true.
Yeah, yours are going up again. And believe me, I'm afraid right now because of a lot of different issues, but when the way they assess my house, most of my house, Sam, is 2x3 construction. That's 100 and maybe 15 years old. Love my house, but when they keep telling me, you know, it's worth about $600,000 now, Mr. Hoey, I can't believe that kind of number for this house, Sam. It just can't keep going like that assessment type of thing. But I said to myself now, when I come in the door and I see Sam Chase as the host, what do you think about this, the way we assess houses? And I know property taxes, I think everybody's are going to go up, but just talk a little bit about that type of stuff for me, would you?
Sure. And it's too bad I didn't know about this because I could have looked up your property record, and we could have talked about that. But generally speaking, the way assessments are done, two things are looked at. First of all, the structure itself on your property. So you have land that has a value, okay, and then you have buildings that are on the land that have value, okay? So the way the assessor looks at valuing your building, your house, they use what's called the construction method for valuation. So they take a look at your house and your square footage and the style of your home, okay, and they say, what would it cost today to build that house brand new using today's construction materials and today's construction methods and following the current building codes? What would it cost to replicate Bob Hoey's house today? They look at that, they get the value, and then they look at your actual home in terms of its age and its condition, okay? And any factors on the property that would either enhance or negatively impact The value. So you said your house is, what, you said 100 years old?
About 115,
Okay.
I believe.
Have you kept up in terms of the maintenance, and have you modernized your kitchen and your bath? Have you done all that, or is,
All except one bedroom,
Okay.
yeah, and a
so
outside garage detached, but,
so the assessor would look at your property, and at some point it has to be inspected. In fact, state law requires a physical inspection by the assessors of your property every 9 years. Now, cities and towns are better or not so good at doing that, but that's the legal requirement, okay? So they're supposed to look at you, and Lowell is pretty good about doing that, okay? So they would look at your house, and they would establish a year built, okay? If it wasn't known as a fact, they would say, well, the house is over 100 years old. If they're not sure and it's old, they'll peg the year built as 1900, okay? So what they do is they take the value of the home as built, brand new, as I described, and then they assign a depreciation factor to it, okay, based on its age and its general condition. So I would say for your house, not having the property card in front of me, I would guess that you probably have about and let's say you've kept it up reasonably well. I'm going to say that your property is probably depreciated at about 40%, okay, maybe 45%. So then they would take the value of the property or the house as built new, and they would apply the 45% depreciation factor, and that would bring the value of the house down, okay? Then they would take a look at other things in the home that might affect its value either plus or minus. So they would establish a condition rating. Most homes are rated average condition. So I'm going to guess you're probably at average, okay, if you were to look at your field card. If it's a newer home or people have done recent renovations, it might be an average plus 10, average plus 20, okay? And those are generally the grades. It would be average, average plus 10, average plus 20, excellent. Excellent, what might be new construction, or it could be poor, okay, that's a category as well. Other towns have different names for those categories, but that's how it's done, okay? So I would say your house, your building, the actual house is valued new construction, lesser depreciation factor, less any other negative factors that you might have obsolete. You might have a bathroom that hasn't been renovated in 40 years, so that would lower the value of your property. So they look at it from a construction depreciation standpoint. As far as the land is concerned, the land is valued based on the market, okay? So the assessor will look at sales of vacant building lots in Lowell to get an idea of what a typical vacant building lot is worth, okay? And they will also take a look at sales of properties, you know, that like yours, that have the houses on them, and they will subtract the value of the structures on the property to get a computed land value, and they'll take a look at all that. It goes into the database. So the value of your property is the land value plus the depreciated value of your buildings that are on the property.
Would I be correct to say now that this ADU issue is that you can put something in your yard that your land is
Yes.
worth more now? Maybe a little bit more?
Well, not the land,
No.
but the structures, because again, the ADU itself has a value once it's constructed.
Comment from the audience. Good morning. When you have housing inventory low and housing needed, that will certainly drive the price of real estate up.
Jim.
Good point.
Thanks, Jim.
That is classic supply and demand economic theory. That is absolutely correct. He's 100% right with that statement.
You know, but the people that I've been talking to, because you know I am going to run for the school committee, most of them are talking about, their property taxes, they're gonna go up again on me, and I, like trash fees that bother a place like Drake, I like the people that take my trash away.
Well-
And I try to recycle the right way, but I know I make mistakes.
Well,
too.
everybody does, and they changed the rules. I mean, when the recycling started, all kinds of things were able to be recycled, but as time has gone on, they have removed things from the recycling list. Certain kinds of plastics can't be done, that kind of thing. So it makes it more difficult for the homeowner. You have to stay current on what the rules are, and most of us don't do that. I have to tell you, I don't spend any time at all during the week looking up to see what I can and can't recycle. It's just kind of a feel, you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
who does that, right? I
You
mean,
take apart the bicycle and you put it in the recycle bin,
no, yeah. Well, some of the items, technically you're not supposed to do
which is
that.
completely wrong. You can't
Yeah,
recycle a
exa-
bicycle.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean,
That muffler that fell off the car,
no. Most people don't know. Most people, I think, understand generally paper goods can be recycled and some, glass items, bottles and stuff like that. But, beyond that.
well, Sam, the big question
it's
is,
tough.
and nobody can answer it, where are these the matter, the recycled matter?
Mm-hmm.
Where does it go? Because China doesn't take it.
I think a lot of it probably goes in the ocean.
Well, some of it is reprocessed, but
I think the majority of it is burned up.
Probably.
probably.
We charge recycle, they
Well-
weigh it and they said, nope, we don't want that, burn it.
I mean, glass things and plastic
That's
things.
my takeaway.
Well, could be. Glass and plastic are supposed to be recycled, reused, okay, and they certainly can be. But that begs another question. So if you recycle glass bottles, it takes quite a bit of energy to do that, okay? I mean, you got to melt the glass, and it's
You gotta haul it around,
lot of energy.
clean it.
Yeah, and so, I mean, to me, it's probably not a net gain, it's probably a net loss. I don't know, I'm just guessing, because I'm not really knowledgeable in that area, but, it just seems to me it's a lot of work to process recycled items.
know-
That would be my take on it.
When I come on this show on a Thursday, Sam, it's always in my head. I can find out almost anything between you and Evelyn, really. And I look at it like I'm going to Middlesex Community College. I'm coming in here to learn something.
Well,
But
we all have our interests, but one thing, and you know this about me, if I don't know, I say I don't know.
No, I know
Because
that.
the worst thing you can do is give the impression that you are knowledgeable about something, and because you can wind up misleading a lot of people.
Can you tell us the story about the ABC newscaster?
Oh, Lord.
This is a good one.
I couldn't believe it, and when I heard it, I thought it was a joke, and then realized quickly it wasn't. So I'm trying to think now, was it 2 or 3 days ago? It doesn't matter. But anyway, they're talking about the papal conclave in Rome. So the cardinals are assembled to elect a new pope. And this ABC News person says with a perfectly straight face, well, when it's black smoke, it means they have a black pope. If it's white smoke, it means they have a white pope. And I did a double take. I said, what? And I looked at the person on the newscast, and perfectly straight face, and the person sitting next to this person never challenged that at all. It was just like, okay, move on. And I thought to myself, there is a level of ignorance I think I haven't seen in a long time. I mean, that just was unbelievable. That was an unbelievable statement. So, yeah, that's what the person said. Black smoke equals black pope. White smoke equals white pope.
I'm looking at all that stuff.
I thought, I'm 78 years old, and I thought I'd heard everything, but I guess I haven't, okay?
Yeah, I'm only 70, Sam, but I'm getting there,
Yeah.
And when I first started to go to church, it was all like in Latin.
Yes.
I couldn't understand
Yes.
thing, but my grandmother just dragged me to Sacred Heart Church. But nothing hurt our neighborhood more than Sacred Heart Church closing. You know,
How
I
many-
imagine the same feeling must be about St. Peter's, you know?
How many Catholic churches in Lowell have closed since, let's pick a year, 1960, okay?
Oh, I couldn't even guess at that.
John would know, right? Because you're in the churches all the time.
Yeah, well, Sacred Heart's gone.
Yep,
St. Peter's.
2,
St. Louis.
3,
St. Jean the Baptist.
4.
And I'm sure there's more, but those are the.
But that's a lot. Even 4 is a lot, okay?
Well, the church embarrassed themselves with the pedophile thing,
Certainly.
and
certainly
they
did.
never.
There's never been.
They've yet to reconstruct.
There's never been a full accounting of that, and I'm not sure you'll ever see it.
Well, I have a huge opinion on that because I, retired prison guard, and I dealt with a few of them that came through contact prison.
Absolutely.
And I will say this, it's basically the Roman Catholic, I'm a Catholic, and we had the money. And the lawyers know how much money's there, but every denomination has had pedophiles. There's pedophiles
Oh,
in every occupation.
Absolutely right.
And that's the way I look at that whole issue. But the Catholics had so much money, lawyers know it, and they go
I knew
crazy.
years
All right.
ago, I knew 2 Episcopal priests that were pedophiles. So you're absolutely
Yeah.
right. It
So how do
exists
you-
everywhere.
Restore your reputation.
It just takes time. You gotta keep your nose
People
clean.
have got to forget.
Keep your nose clean, walk the straight and narrow, and it just takes time. That's all.
Are you talking, how does a pedophile?
No, pedophile. They should be.
No, how
executed.
does the
I'm sorry, we got-
how does the church
Okay, no, I
get its
just wanted to make
reputation
sure,
back?
because
Right.
there's no way out for these other,
Oh, no,
most
no,
of them
no.
are homeless. They can't even get an apartment, they're past being a level 3 sex offender.
But how does the Catholic Church go and get? They're still the number 1 religion on the planet.
They just have to walk the straight and narrow, and it's time. That's all.
Listen, I never had any priest bother me at Sacred Heart in my life.
I'm glad to hear that.
And I'll say this about nuns, that's the problem with, I thought Catholics made, they should have let women become priests. That's just my opinion. It's
I
an
agree with
opinion
you. And
show.
how about priests being allowed to marry?
That's fine too,
Yeah,
I don't care
I
about that.
think so.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me when you have a priest shortage, which apparently they've had for years, okay, that you exclude half the population from being
We'll
priests.
see what the new
right?
the new guy thinks, because the protests that I've seen on Facebook,
Hmm.
and there's been quite a few. I watched a bunch of a British woman demanding that the next pope be a woman, and
Is this British person a Catholic?
it was video, so
So you don't know.
It isn't like they take questions.
All right.
So I watched the video of this lady saying that women should be priests,
Mm-hmm.
and the next pope should be a woman, and she's got these
No, that's not happening.
pink flares, and there's 4 of them. These pink flares, and they get news coverage, so they were happy with the news coverage. But I think most women are superior thinkers to men, and the best example I can give you is. Think of yourself being single, you're walking with your girlfriend down at the beach, holding her hand, you're walking in the water, and she's thinking, oh, the water feels so good around my legs, and the beautiful sunshine and the sand under my feet. It's and the wind blowing through my hair. And a guy's thinking, are we going to get something to eat? That's the that's why I say women are superior.
That's funny. Well, I think that the church needs to recognize some realities. On the other hand, I'm kind of down the middle on this issue. The church should not throw away all its principles either. And at the risk, I'm going to get some people very upset now about what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. You see this in the Protestant sects, where they absolutely just walk away from standards because they're trying to be current or, political and stuff. So I commend the Catholic Church for sticking to many of its principles, and not being swayed by public opinion so much. I think that's a good thing. But by the same token, I think there are things that the church could look at and recognize that many of the things that the church has observed for hundreds and hundreds of years, a lot of it is not grounded in theology. For example, when the church began, up until about the 9th century, priests married, okay? And then all of a sudden, it stopped. And the reason it stopped is because the church wanted to make sure that any property that the priest had, and in the early days, priests typically came from wealthier families, okay? The church wanted to make sure that when the priests died, that the property would stay with the church and not go to the family. So that was a big reason why the priests were not allowed to marry. It was not grounded in theology, because as I said, for the first 900 years of the church, priests could marry, okay? So that was a change. So that's just an example. So some of the things, some of the rules that have been developed over, 500, 600, 1,000 years or so are in place for more practical and non-spiritual reasons, as opposed to being
think the
grounded
shutting-
in the Bible.
I think the biggest wound the Catholic Church has is they closed most of their schools. If you don't make little Catholics, they don't become big Catholics.
Well, that's a good point. But again, I think that was a matter of economics, right?
And I think
They couldn't really.
Sam, if you don't put seeds in the ground, well, we don't have the money to plant more corn.
Well, I get it. But I think that's what drove the decision. Falling enrollment and the cost of
The
keeping the
Pope
buildings
made a
up.
terrible decision to let that happen.
Yeah.
And the incoming Pope's got to regrow the population.
Yeah.
I never went to Sacred Heart. I just went to Sunday school there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my family went to Sacred Heart, but I moved in with my grandmother, and I went to almost 12, I think it's 12 public schools there. I bounced around because of divorce, okay? Everybody knows my story.
You weren't too good in school either, buddy.
But if you went to Sacred Heart School, tell me you don't remember Sister Mary Kevin, okay? That's the first time I met someone like Mrs. Keeley in the Catholic schools. Boy, was she strict. Oh, man.
That's back when
She was strict, back when they could be strict.
back when the nuns wore the old-fashioned
Oh, they were
habits.
the best.
Right.
And after they
So-
disciplined you, they'd give you a piece of licorice or a piece of bubble gum.
Well, in my town, in Concord, we had two very large Catholic schools. It was Rose Hawthorne School in the center of town, and that was grades 1 through 12 for girls and 1 through 8 for boys. And then the boys, when they got through the 8th grade, they could go to the Xavier High School in Concord, which is right on Route 2, right across from Emerson Hospital. It's an insurance company now, but that was a beautiful school. And I can tell you, when I was growing up, both of those schools had to turn away people, okay? I mean, the kids were Rose Hawthorne was full, and in the elementary grades, the average class size was 45 or 50 kids. And in the Xavier High School, at one point, they had over 1,000. That was just boys, okay? That was high school for, and the Xavier School was run by the Jesuits, okay? And very fine school, to the point where they had some students that were not Catholics. I mean, there were people in Concord that thought so highly of the Xavier education. They weren't Catholics, but they sent their boys there anyway, right? So I mean, the schools had a good reputation.
Did you
But
see
they're
that?
they're both gone now, and it's too bad.
Did you see that in the news last week? It was the governor, is it Abbott, Texas? Governor
Yes,
Abbott, I believe.
Greg Abbott.
Yeah, they passed a bill there that it's something that Camp K lost on when he ran for school committee. It was having school choice. And in Texas, I didn't read the whole thing. I went off what I seen on TV. They're going to give people $11,000.
Yes. A voucher, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what Camp K was after at that time. And I told them, oh boy, don't do that in Massachusetts.
Well, it won't happen in a blue state,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
That'll only happen in red states.
It'll happen if the federal people who roll out the money decide, you will give school vouchers.
Yeah. But
What Priest did was unacceptable. But don't forget about the sexual garbage on TV, and the cell phones are easily accessible to anything. That's from Jay. Good point.
Cell phones do a lot of damage, yeah. But we're not going to get rid of cell phones.
Oh, no.
But I listen to, I have an app on my phone called TuneIn.
tuned in?
TuneIn.
Oh,
It's
tune
an-
in, okay.
It's an app on my phone. And I listen to WBAP, and that's in Houston, Texas. It's one of the stations I listen to, and that's how I found out about this voucher system.
Right.
And so what the state of Texas decided to roll it, and it's going to grow. State of Texas decided they're going to have 11,000 vouchers. First dibs on the vouchers will go to special needs students, and then any Tom, Dick, or Mary can apply for a voucher. And what they're going to do is they're going to give you the number I heard was $11,000 towards your tuition. So wherever your kid's going to school, it'd be kind of nice to have 11 grand coming from the town, and you just pay the balance. And if you don't think that's going to drain Chelmsford High School, Tyngsboro High, Tewksbury High, into a private high school, you're mistaken.
Yeah, what it's going to
Well,
do.
that's why the teachers' unions and the educational industry that I call here in Mass, that's why they oppose it, because it's a reduction of
Well,
their
it's-
power and influence.
It's a shot heard around the world.
Yep.
And the teachers have got to, administration has got to, you got to start looking at those MCAS scores, which we got rid of last year. But
Well,
what Liam
they-
Skinner
they-
said, they're going to keep them until they find something else to use. But
They've got, well, MCAS, they still do MCAS, it's just not a requirement for graduation.
Like, and the way I'm looking at things, it's a money issue. It's always,
Oh, of course,
it's
of course,
always
of
about
course,
money.
of course.
But the competition that would come out of something like that, I only see as a positive.
Well, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
All right, because education now, public education is a monopoly. So they're not, we all understand basic economics. So when you have competition, vigorous competition, things get better, okay? Companies get better because they have to compete. In public education, there's no competition. So there's no incentive for them to improve and get better.
I'll try to keep a few things local, but
Yeah.
when I say it's money, a good person to a nice guy, his name was Linus Gilry. He was in our school system that Joe Boyd brought in, our last superintendent. Well, I said he won't last long. I've said it on this show a
How
few
long
times.
did Boyd last? Not too long,
A
right?
couple of years.
Couple
He
of
went
years.
to the, giving out 1 million free meals, feeding people from all over the place. So we fed probably as many people that live in New Hampshire than we did in Massachusetts. But that's what Joe Boyd, I'll always remember him for. He hit that, what's the word I'm looking
Plateau?
for? Plateau. Of 1 million free meals every day come out of the back of the
Wow.
school. It's at our back right here, the Rogers
That's a
School.
lot of food.
Yeah, and it went a little higher than that, too. But money, Linus Gilry just had to resign out of Brookline. I knew we weren't going to keep him here because he was just a talented guy, no doubt about it. He goes down there in Brookline, Mass., which I heard there's a lot of money in that town.
Yeah, but it's also tough. I mean, if he can survive in a Brookline environment, he's doing pretty well.
Well, this is what I'm afraid of for Lowell
Yeah.
and everywhere else. They were shy $8 million in their budget, and he resigned right away. This is just recent.
In Brookline?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think when they went after a guy from Chelmsford, Dr. Kafawi, I always say that, I think they could go after anybody.
He still lives in Chelmsford, by the
Yeah,
way.
I know.
Yeah.
And I talk to him now and then. His wife is a great person, too.
How did
She's
that,
a speech pathologist, something I really enjoy talking about.
That's a very specialized area. Now,
Yeah.
how did the lawsuit, Kalfawi was pursuing a lawsuit.
Yeah,
How did that come out?
He probably was lucky to get his bills paid. It's just the way they did it, when you fire someone, you could fire someone and don't do it on TV. That's all that bothered me, really, to be honest with you. But they went after the budget, and I almost think you could go after any school budget and find something wrong with it. 255 million, Sam and Lowell, that's what that budget
You can go after any budget and find something wrong with it.
Of course.
Yeah.
You know why they got rid of Kafawi? I have to say this, because it's in my heart, and I believe I'm right.
You say it, and because I have my theory. I
Yeah,
want to
that's
see.
okay.
I want to see how close my theory is to yours. So go ahead.
The number one issue to me, the real reason, and I don't want to say maintenance of effort, because I always say that. That's the city's money and all about money. But it was because he, as superintendent, came in when we had an racial issue that people sent a text message out about blacks, and it went bad. It was like Boston Latin. It was a big issue at that time in Boston Latin. It came into Lowell. And Dr. Kafawi fixed that with about 7 days. That issue went away in Lowell.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he formed a committee of people.
And that was a bad thing that happened?
Well, when you have people that are running the high school at the time, was a city manager, was everything.
Yeah.
And he was running the high school, and he ran it very well. But his ego, you fixed an issue I wanted to fix.
Oh,
And the city solicitor,
I
solicitor joined in. You fixed an issue that we were supposed to fix. See you later, Kafawi.
Well,
that's my opinion.
You know something? Now that's very interesting, because I have a little bit different take, but it feeds into what you said. So let me give you before I do that though, I'm going to give you a quote from former President Harry Truman. And President Truman said, "You can get a lot done if you don't care who gets the credit." Okay? Right?
Yeah.
You can get a lot done if you don't care who gets the credit. So that follows up on what you just said. So we had, in your opinion, bruised egos, okay, because they were concerned about, quote, who was going to get the credit. So they never studied Harry Truman, all right? Now, I agree I think you're probably right, and I'll take your thoughts over mine, because you were very close to the situation, being on the school committee at the time. You saw all that unfold. But to follow on what you just said, my impression with Dr. Kafawi, just generally speaking, you've given a specific reason. My thought was, watching the Lowell City Council for years, my general impression is that there are people on the city council, and have been historically, that themselves, they really want to run the school system. They don't want the superintendent to run it. They want to run it. They want to call the shots. And here's what I think. When they brought in Dr. Kafawi came in, and he was from a very, very small school district. I think it might have been Ashburnham or something like that. I forget. One of the towns out in the western, near Fitchburg. Very, very small district. And my opinion, based on nothing, I mean, I could be 1,000% wrong, but this is how it looks to me. They looked at Kafawi and they said, well, here's a guy with the educational credentials and so forth, so he's, on paper he's qualified. But he doesn't have any experience running a large school system. So if we get him in here, he's going to be really overwhelmed, and we're going to get to call the shots and run the school. Well, but the problem is, as I see it, Dr. Kafawi, who is a very smart guy, came in, and for some reason, he thought the superintendent ought to be running the schools. And so he did. And I don't think those folks on the school committee liked it very much. Am I too far off?
No, you're right on the money. But this was the final straw.
Yeah.
Is when he said to me, Bob, we got to look into this maintenance of effort issue, because the school system's getting ripped off. That's all. And once he said that, the city manager at the time, that was it. Then they went in and looked at the budget. They got rid of them. Boom, boom, got them right out of here. But
I think he was probably right.
It's
I mean,
something we have to
Yeah.
stop, though. We have to stop what we've done in the past 25 years. We throw people out too quick. We don't give them enough time.
well, what's the average tenure of a superintendent? About
Oh.
3 years, maybe?
Well, I had 7 years on a school committee, worked for 4 mayors. Hey,
Yeah.
worked for 4 different mayors, right?
Yeah.
4 different mayors
Yeah.
and 4 different superintendents.
Okay, 7 years
7
on the
years.
committee
Yeah,
and 4 supers.
yep.
So do the math, folks. That's not even 2 years, okay,
Yeah.
average. So that's, whereas, let's see, we've had Jay Lang now. I think he's in his 10th year in Chelmsford, or actually 11th year. We hired him in 2014, I believe. All right, and he's not going anywhere. I mean, if you guys tried to get him back, he would say thanks, but no thanks.
And we've
All
been
right?
warned. We've been warned by Jay Lang a couple of years ago on this show that this
Yep.
is the next year and the year after
Yep.
was going to be very hard in the schools.
Well,
So,
well,
as a
what-
union person, Sam,
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
As a union person, I am pro-union, no doubt about it. I
Yep.
love teachers. I always said teachers are underpaid. And in my opinion, folks, teachers are still underpaid. I don't want to get into that issue right now, but I'll tell you why they're not they're underpaid anytime you want. I'm sick when I see 180 days. Oh, Mr. Hoey, they only work 180 days.
That's-
Give me a break, will
That's
you please?
nonsense. It's nonsense.
You know, I knew how to beat the system as a prison guard. I don't even think I worked that many days.
Well, let me
a
tell you
year. How's
something.
that?
I'm married to a person who taught elementary school for 40 years, okay? And she was 4th and 5th grade, which means that the kids have homework, okay? And during the school year, there was never a weekend that went by that my wife wasn't working on schoolwork and lesson plans. So, and every night, okay? So this, 6 hours a day nonsense is nonsense, okay? A good teacher puts in a lot of time that people don't see, okay? And we'd go on day trips with friends. I remember Bill Dalton and I very close, and Bill was a selectman in town, and we'd go off on a day trip with the Daltons, and my wife would bring her schoolwork, and we'd be in the car, and she'd be sitting in the back of the car doing her schoolwork on a Saturday and a Sunday, okay? And this is what the good teachers do, all right? And first of all, it's 185 days, not 180. The teachers are contracted for 185, okay? And the good ones work more days than that, because my wife used to go in middle of August. She would start, and she would go in to do administrative stuff, set up her classroom, which in Chelmsford, the custodial staff doesn't do. The teachers have to do that. So you want things arranged a certain way, you want things cleaned. The teacher goes in and does that, not the custodial staff. Okay, so I'm telling you that this 6 hour a day baloney, it's nonsense. Okay, nonsense.
When it gets bad with money and
Yeah.
cuts are coming and things
Right.
are not looking good, right away I switch to this is how I think. I switch to this mode of I look at teachers like I look at the infantry. The infantry is one thing, and everybody else, including generals, to me, is just, you're not the backbone of the system, okay? You're just support staff. That's all you are. And I'm sorry to say it that way, but when things get bad, I'm not going to be touching teachers. It'll be something around it, transportation, custodians. Look at, what do you do?
Administrative staff.
Yeah, it's top heavy, no doubt about that. That's
Everywhere,
something-
in
yeah.
every, even the well-run districts, in my opinion, they're top-heavy with administrative staff.
Our biggest problem, to me, is one would be busing, two is food, feeding our children in our system, because we almost have
Now,
over 15,000.
In Lowell,
Yeah.
how do they do the food service? Is the food prepared in-house, or do they have a vendor? How does that work?
We have a vendor,
Okay,
and I won't mention the company's name. I've done it too many times right now, but that's a big issue to me. It's something has to be done about the way we feed our children. Down the pike, I think it's going to get worse. Transportation we've been getting ripped off in transportation for years, and we'll be in court sometime soon every city and town is being held hostage with busing. That's
Well,
a big one
there's
for
really,
me.
in this area, there's really only one vendor.
And I want to give,
Okay.
I want to give a shout out, Sam. When I say I'm a pro-union type of guy, I am, but I'll give a warning out to the custodial staff, starting with you right now, because you have a decent pension. Look at the benefits you're getting from that job. And a lot of yous are really good at that job. I know some real great janitors, custodians. We've lost two. All right, a Manny Silva with 35-year plus in the system, we lost him. Jeff Bilby from the Maury School, we lost him. 40 years, he kept it immaculate type of school, and he was a security type guy. So my warning would be this. If you're a lazy person, and I'm telling you, I worked for the state, half the people do the job, and the other half do nothing but complain. Start doing your job, make your places immaculate, because some cuts are coming all over the place. So all I would say to you is lift up and do the job. Laziness, that would be the first thing that I'm looking for.
Good
I'll tell you.
advice.
Yeah.
Well, in maintenance in lovely Lowell, Massachusetts,
Good advice.
is disrespected. You go into administration goes into a completely pristine, clean building. Said, boy, this place is immaculate. We don't need any custodians here. The place is already clean. That's the mentality of administration.
Well, especially,
lovely Lowell,
especially
Massachusetts.
people who've never worked in maintenance or cleaned anything in their lives. How would they understand it? You said something that's funny.
I don't want to get off one thing
Yeah.
from me though, because if
Go ahead.
Evelyn was here, I'd be asking her probably over you.
All right.
But what system does Chelmsford have? Didn't they go through private?
For what?
Custodial.
Okay, so what happened was 12, 13 years ago, and prior to that, it was a captive system. So if you were a custodian in Chelmsford, you worked directly for the school department. So they were all town employees of the school department, okay? About 12, 14 years ago, we got some folks elected to the school committee that thought the answer to saving money was to privatize everything. So they decided to privatize the custodial services. And they did, and they hired Aramark, which is probably about the worst company they ever could have chosen, to do it. And so at that point, it was all privatized. So none of the custodial staff, including the supervision, okay, were town employees. So they laid them all off. Gone, okay? And then they contracted. The condition of the schools deteriorated and became absolutely deplorable, okay? When the custodial folks worked for the town, they were doing a decent job of keeping up the schools. The vendor did not do a decent job. It became bad, and we had problems with the employees of the vendor. Many of them stole things, okay? So it deteriorated